I never believed in love all my life until I met her. My entire focus was on building a legacy for myself. I built my empire from nothing. Every boardroom victory, every strategic deal, every sleepless night spent chasing success had led me here, to the pinnacle of wealth and power. But none of it compared to the feeling I had when I married Evelyn Monroe. She wasn't just beautiful. She was a masterpiece, with her sharp wit, effortless charm, and the kind of presence that made entire rooms turn in admiration. She was the one thing I had never been able to buy: love. At least, that's what I thought. Our wedding was a spectacle, a grand affair held at an exclusive vineyard in the French countryside, where celebrities and billionaires clinked glasses under the glow of chandeliers. The media ate it up. The power couple of the century, the headlines read. Evelyn wore a custom gown that shimmered like liquid silver, and when she looked at me that day, I was convinced. I had finally found my forever. But forever lasted exactly 2 weeks. The Maldives was paradise. A private island, sapphire waves rolling onto white sands, the kind of peace that felt untouched by the world. Evelyn and I spent our days basking in luxury. Morning swims in an infinity pool overlooking the ocean, champagne breakfasts, lazy afternoons where she'd rest her head on my chest, whispering about the future. Looking back, I realize now that she never actually talked about our future. Only hers. The night it all unraveled, the sky was painted in hues of gold and indigo. The gentle lull of waves in the distance, the flickering candlelight of our beachside dinner. It was meant to be the kind of night that deepened love, not destroyed it. Evelyn sat across from me in a flowing white dress, her fingers idly tracing the rim of her wine glass. Something about her expression was different, detached, as if she were already miles away. Then, she pulled out a crisp white envelope and slid it across the table. "Sign this," she said, her voice as smooth as ever, but laced with something colder. I frowned, reaching for it. The second my eyes scanned the words petition for divorce, my stomach twisted into knots. I let out a short, breathless laugh. "What is this, some kind of joke?" She didn't laugh. "I regret marrying you," she said, her tone eerily calm, like she was reading off a script. "I only wanted the fame, but I hate you." Hate. The word sliced through me with the precision of a dagger. My pulse roared in my ears as I stared at her, searching for something, anything, that might tell me this was some kind of cruel test, that she'd break into laughter and say, "Gotcha, Nathan." But her expression remained unreadable. "You're serious," I murmured. Evelyn sighed, tilting her head slightly. "You're an intelligent man. You had to have seen this coming." I hadn't. Not once had I doubted her. Not once had I questioned the way she leaned into me at parties, the way she kissed me when no cameras were around, the way she whispered my name like a secret meant only for us. It had all been real, hadn't it? I forced myself to speak, though my throat felt raw. "Why?" Evelyn exhaled through her nose, almost irritated, as if my confusion was an inconvenience to her. "Nathan, I never loved you. I loved what being with you gave me. Influence. Power. A name that meant something. But you? I don't even like you." She leaned in slightly, lowering her voice to a whisper. "And the truth is, I was never meant to stay. I got what I wanted." She gestured toward the ocean, toward the sprawling villa behind us. "This lifestyle? It's mine now. I don't need you anymore." A slow, searing rage began to burn beneath my ribs. I had spent years fighting for everything I had. Every dollar, every piece of respect, every empire I'd built. I had earned it with blood, sweat, and unbreakable will. And now, the one thing I had allowed myself to believe in, the one thing I let my guard down for, had been a lie? Evelyn's gaze flickered toward the papers. "You're not going to make this difficult, are you?" she asked, with an air of boredom. For a moment, I considered it. I could fight this. I could drag her through legal hell, expose her, ruin her the way she had just ruined me. But as I stared at her, I realized something. Evelyn Monroe was not worth the battle. People like her, Their greatest fear wasn't loss. It was irrelevance. She didn't care about love. She cared about winning. And right now, if I exploded, if I let her see even a glimpse of the pain she had caused, she would have that victory. I wouldn't give it to her. I let out a slow breath, took the pin, and signed my name with steady precision. Evelyn looked almost surprised. "Well," she said, standing up, smoothing out her dress. "That was easier than I thought." She turned to leave, but I wasn't done. "Evelyn," I said, my voice controlled, void of emotion. She paused, glancing over her shoulder. "Yes?" I looked at her, really looked at her, as if seeing her for the first time. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. Something dark. Something permanent. "You'll regret this," I said, not as a plea, but as a promise. She smiled, a condescending, pitying thing. "No, Nathan," she whispered. "I never regret anything." And then she walked away, her silhouette fading into the golden glow of the resort lights. I sat there long after she was gone, staring at the divorce papers, at the signature that sealed my humiliation. My love had been a lie, my marriage a performance, my heart a casualty in a war I never knew I was fighting. But I wasn't broken. No, not broken. I was something else now, something colder. And Evelyn Monroe was about to learn exactly what kind of man she had betrayed. When I stepped off my private jet and into the biting air of Manhattan, I was no longer the man who had left. The Nathan Carter who had once believed in love and trust, in the idea that wealth and power could be shared with someone worthy. He had died on that island. What remained was something sharper, colder, and infinitely more dangerous. I walked through the sleek, glass doors of Carter Industries, my presence causing the usual ripple of hushed voices and nervous glances. My employees knew me as a ruthless but fair CEO. That day, they sensed something different. "Sir," my assistant Liam greeted me cautiously as he fell into step beside me. "Welcome back. Do you need me to schedule, cancel everything?" I interrupted. My voice was smooth, devoid of warmth. No distractions. Just work. Liam hesitated, clearly reading between the lines. Understood. Others simply understood the weight of my influence. Within 1 week, Evelyn's contract started to fall through. Publicly, the companies claimed a shift in brand direction. Privately, they were terrified of what crossing me would mean for their bottom line. I pictured her reaction when she got those calls, the confusion, the disbelief as she realized the world that had once adored her was turning its back. And I was just getting started. Evelyn had always been reckless with money. She had tasted luxury and assumed it would always be within reach. But without brand deals and sponsorships pouring in, her lifestyle became a ticking time bomb. I made sure she felt it. She had investments, real estate, stocks, business ventures she barely understood. I found their weaknesses and applied pressure. A well-placed rumor, a strategic withdrawal, a delayed transaction. One by one, her properties were sold to cover debts. Her accounts bled dry. The penthouse suite she loved, the sports cars she flaunted, the designer wardrobe she prided herself on, they were no longer sustainable. Still, she had friends, didn't she? A glittering social circle that had welcomed her with open arms. I moved on to them next. High society had rules. And at the top, where wealth dictated who was worthy, loyalty was an illusion. I attended the right parties, made quiet suggestions, planted just enough doubt. Did you hear what she did to Nathan Carter? I wouldn't trust someone like that, would you? People distanced themselves slowly at first, ignored her texts, canceled dinner plans. No one wanted to be associated with a fallen star. And then, the final blow. At one of the most exclusive charity galas of the year, Evelyn arrived in a stunning designer gown, ready to reclaim her place. But something was different. Conversations stopped as she passed. Stares lingered just a little too long. By the time she realized her name wasn't on the guest list, that security had been instructed to turn her away, I imagine she felt it, that creeping, suffocating feeling of irrelevance. She had spent years making herself somebody. Now, she was nobody. I watched it all from a distance, never directly involved, never getting my hands dirty. The headlines began to shift. The woman who had once been celebrated for her elegance and influence was now whispered about in scandalous tones. Some said she had been careless with money, others speculated about a powerful enemy working against her. She had no idea how right they were. And still, it wasn't enough. I wasn't done. Not until she felt everything I had felt. Not until she begged. Not until she understood what it meant to lose everything. 1 year. It had been exactly 1 year since Evelyn Monroe destroyed the illusion of love I had once believed in. 1 year since she had thrown divorce papers in my face and confessed, without hesitation, that she had only married me for fame. 1 year since I had decided she would suffer for it. And suffer she did. I had watched, unseen, as her world unraveled thread by thread. The social circles that had once embraced her now regarded her with quiet disdain. Her financial empire had crumbled, her desperate attempts to salvage it only accelerating her downfall. There was a dark satisfaction in witnessing her fall, but I never expected what came next. The pristine elegance, the effortless confidence, the shimmering mask of perfection, all of it was gone. Her once glossy blonde hair hung in tangled waves around her face, damp from the rain. The expensive designer clothes she used to flaunt had been replaced by something simpler, something almost ordinary. Her blue eyes, eyes that had once sparkled with arrogance, now held something I never thought I'd see. Desperation. "Nathan," she breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. For a long moment, I simply stared at her, letting the silence stretch, letting her drown in it. Then I leaned against the doorframe, my lips curling into a smirk. "Evelyn, to what do I owe the pleasure?" She hesitated, hands clutching the soaked fabric of her coat. I could see the battle within her, the pride that still lingered, warring against the reality she could no longer deny. And then, finally, she broke. "I was wrong." The words tumbled from her lips, shaking. "Nathan, I made the biggest mistake of my life." I raised an eyebrow, feigning curiosity. "Oh." Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing. Absolutely nothing. "I thought I knew what I wanted," she continued, her voice cracking. "I thought fame, status, all of it would make me happy. But the moment I lost you, I lost everything." I tilted my head. "Fascinating. Please, continue." Her breath hitched at my indifference, but she pressed on. "I love you, Nathan," she whispered. "I didn't realize it before, but I do. I love you, and I want to fix this." Love? That word, coming from her lips, was almost laughable. And yet, I played along. I took a slow step forward, reaching out to tuck a stray strand of wet hair behind her ear. Her breath hitched at the touch, hope flickering in her eyes. "Evelyn," I murmured, my voice softer now. "Do you truly mean that? That you love me?" "Yes," she breathed. "Yes, I do. More than anything." I leaned in, close enough that I could feel the trembling of her body. Close enough that, for a brief moment, she thought she had won. Then, I whispered against her ear, "Go to hell." Evelyn froze. The hope in her eyes shattered into 1,000 pieces. For a moment, she didn't move, didn't breathe, as if her mind was struggling to process what had just happened. Then, reality crashed down. Her legs buckled, and she sank to her knees at my doorstep, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "Nathan!" Her voice was barely audible, raw with anguish. "Please!" I stepped back, expression unreadable. "Did you think I'd just forget?" My voice was eerily calm. "That I'd take you back after what you did? I was a fool," she choked out. "I see that now, but we can start over. I know you still love me." I knelt before her, my gaze locking onto hers. "You know nothing." A sob tore from her throat, and for the first time, I truly saw her break. I had dreamed of this moment, imagined her downfall 100 times over, and yet, I felt nothing. No thrill, No triumph. Only emptiness. She was broken, and I had made her that way. So why did it feel so hollow? I straightened, stepping back into the warmth of my penthouse. Evelyn remained on the ground, soaked and shivering, looking so small compared to the woman she used to be. And yet, I had no mercy left to give. I gave her one final look. Then, without another word, I shut the door in her face. The sound of her sobs lingered outside, but I didn't care. I should have felt victorious. I had spent a year destroying her, and now she had finally crawled back, shattered beyond repair. This is what I wanted, isn't it? As I poured another drink and stared out at the city, a question I hadn't expected crept into my mind. What now? What came after vengeance? Because for the first time in a year, I wasn't sure. I had one. Evelyn Monroe had crawled back to me in ruins, her once perfect world reduced to nothing but whispers and shadows. I had spent a year orchestrating her downfall, ensuring she lost everything: her reputation, her career, her high society alliances. She had begged for mercy, and I had given her none. So why did I feel nothing? The night after Evelyn appeared at my doorstep, I stood at the window of my penthouse, looking down at the city. The skyline was endless, a shimmering expanse of power and ambition. I had everything a man could ever want: money, influence, control. And yet, as I took a slow sip of my whiskey, all I could taste was emptiness. I had expected to feel something more: satisfaction, closure, relief. But instead, there was only silence. Days passed, then weeks, and I found myself changing. I had always been sharp, calculated, a man who built his empire with ruthless precision. But now I was colder, more relentless. People around me noticed. My employees, my business partners, even the few acquaintances who dared to remain in my circle. My assistant, Daniel, was the first to comment on it. "You're different," he muttered one evening as I reviewed a contract, my mind barely present. "It's like you're running on something else." "Like you don't," he hesitated. "Like I don't what?" I asked without looking up. "Like you don't care." I did look up then, staring at him across my desk. He was right. I didn't care. Not about the company, not about the deals, not about anything. The fire that had once driven me, the hunger to succeed, to build, to dominate, had faded. And I knew why. Evelyn. Not because I missed her, not because I regretted what I had done, but because she had taken something from me, something I hadn't even realized I had lost: purpose. For the past year, my entire existence had revolved around my revenge against her. Every move, every decision, every late-night meeting had been a carefully calculated step toward her destruction. And now that it was over, now that she was nothing, what was left? I tried to push the questions away, bury them beneath deals and acquisitions, but they festered. Had Evelyn ever truly loved me? It was ridiculous. She had told me herself she regretted marrying me, had only wanted the fame. That moment was burned into my memory, her voice cold, emotionless, as she handed me those divorce papers. But what if there was more to it? What if I had missed something? I knew Evelyn had been ambitious, ruthless, even, in her pursuit of status. But as I thought back to our time together, to the moments that had felt so real, a whisper of doubt crept in. Had I been blind? Had there been something beneath the surface that I had never seen? The thought irritated me. I didn't need closure. I didn't need to dig into the past. She had destroyed me, and I had destroyed her in return. That should have been enough. And yet, I found myself making a call. It didn't take long. I had resources. In less than 48 hours, I had files on Evelyn, old conversations, background checks, whispers from people who had once been close to her. And what I found made my blood run cold. Evelyn hadn't simply wanted fame. That had been true, yes, but there had been pressure. Subtle, quiet, manipulated. Her family, her closest friends. The people around her had pushed her into the marriage, convinced her that securing a future with me, one of the wealthiest men in the country, was her ultimate path to success. And when she had hesitated, when she had shown signs of wanting something real, they had reminded her of what she would lose if she didn't follow through. And then, the final piece. The day before she handed me those divorce papers, she had met with someone, a man I didn't recognize. The surveillance footage was grainy, but the body language was clear. He had been angry. She had been shaken. And just like that, a new, far more sinister possibility crept into my mind. Had Evelyn truly hated me? Or had she been forced to leave? I sat in my office, the files spread before me, my hands steepled together as I processed what I had just learned. This changed nothing. I told myself that over and over. Evelyn had still betrayed me. Whether by her own will or through manipulation, she had still looked me in the eye and chosen to walk away. The damage was already done. And I didn't care. I had spent a year ensuring that she suffered. Nothing would change that. But now I wanted more. Destroying one person hadn't been enough. It had been satisfying in the moment, but fleeting. I needed something greater. A new target. A new game. Her family. The people who had pushed her, used her, twisted her into a pawn in their schemes. They had stolen from me, manipulated me just as much as they had manipulated her. And if they thought they had gotten away with it, they were about to learn a painful lesson. I wasn't done. Not even close. I reached for my phone and made another call. It was time to expand my vengeance. The headlines broke at dawn. Evelyn Monroe's final desperate betrayal. A fallen socialite's lies exposed. By midday, her name was scorched beyond recognition. By nightfall, she was nothing. She had tried. I'll give her that. In her final, desperate attempt to claw her way back, Evelyn had reached for the only weapon she had left, the truth. She had gone to the media, exposing my revenge campaign, telling the world how I had pulled every string to dismantle her life, brick by brick. She spoke of how I had buried her reputation, turned her allies against her, left her with nothing. And for a brief moment, the world had listened. But I was ready, because that's the thing about truth. It's only as powerful as the one who wields it. And Evelyn? She had already lost her credibility long before she opened her mouth. All it took was one leak. One perfectly timed release of damning evidence. Screenshots, emails, voice recordings. All proving that Evelyn had been the manipulator from the very beginning. Her greedy ambition. Her cold-hearted scheme to use me for status. The carefully orchestrated deception she had spun. All captured in black and white. The world didn't see her as a victim. They saw her for what she was, a liar caught in her own web. Betray me, and you pay the price. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more gripping tales of power, betrayal, and revenge. What do you think? Was Nathan right to destroy Evelyn? Or did he go too far? Let me know your thoughts below. And if you love stories like this, stay tuned for more. See you in the next one.